I hit this breaking point at the end of 2021. We had all these amazing things going on, and I just felt like I was letting everybody down. But I realized that it just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't sustainable in the way that I built it, and I didn't want to be doing that work anymore. And again, I had been building that entire year to build my agency to be wildly successful, because I was under the assumption that that meant 7 figures in revenue, a bigger team, all the shiny things, right? And turns out that's not what I really wanted.
Welcome! We're excited about another episode of The Rooted Founder. Today I have Kiley Peters on. She helps female entrepreneurs develop as CEOs and help them to get their clarity on what it is they want to build, how they want to build it, create the lifestyle they want. And so we're going to just dive into the details of what that journey has been like for her and how she helps people evolve and grow in their lives and their businesses. So Kiley, I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Staci. I appreciate it.
So I'm curious, like in your own personal journey, at what point did you decide or know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur or you wanted to help female entrepreneurs? What was that moment for you and how did you land in what you're doing now?
So I think there were 2 moments for me where I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and then I knew I wanted to help women entrepreneurs. So for me, I had built my career in content marketing, digital marketing that evolved into content marketing, that then evolved into account management for digital marketing. And I had been doing freelance work for a long time. And I had been given the opportunity in 2016 to join a boutique PR and content marketing agency as a partner. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm making, good money and all these things. But long story short, about 6 months into it, I was like, this is not what I had thought I was signing up for. I had this, kind of come to Jesus talk with my dad. And I was like, Dad, I don't know what's happening here, but I either need to go get another 9-to-5 job, or maybe it's time I just do my own thing. And I'm so grateful for him in saying like, no, now's the time. You should do your own thing. You should go all in. And so I ended up starting my agency at the time, Brainchild Studios, in the fall of 2016, because in doing digital content marketing, I was like, I need a solid Wi-Fi connection and a laptop. I don't need a giant office. I don't need all these things. I don't need 30 employees. Like, that's what I need in order to do this work. And so I started my agency in quite a scrappy fashion. I joke that my agency started in the 2 feet of space between my refrigerator and my window at my single bedroom apartment. And that's not a joke because it's very real. It was like a standing desk that I was 2 feet wide. And, I had a chair that rolled back from it. And like, that was my office. And so that sparked a 6-year journey building my agency. And over that period of time, as now an entrepreneur, I then surrounded myself with other women entrepreneurs, because that's just what kind of happens, right? In this crazy world of entrepreneurship, we know that, everybody is well, not everybody's lovely, but most people are lovely. But they don't understand what life is like as an entrepreneur if they're not also an entrepreneur. And so I started to gather all these amazing women in my community. And then over time, I started to realize that many of them were so good at doing the thing that they do, the thing that they sell, but they were kind of crappy CEOs, because many of them were like, ooh, numbers, I don't want to talk about. Ooh, spreadsheets, I don't want to talk about. Ooh, I don't want strategy. No, I don't want to talk about. Ooh, managing back-end operations, I don't want to talk about. Processes, I don't want to talk about. Hiring, training, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, I get it, and I'm not judging, but I just saw this opportunity, and I was like, I think I can help. And also, I really love these people. They're so good. They're so great. And they're so talented at doing the thing that they do. And I want to help them not spend tens of thousands of dollars on taxes each year that they don't have to spend, but they don't know that right now, right? I want to help them own their time, because right now they're trading time for money, or they're doing all this bespoke work, but I can help them productize their services so they can create systems and processes that don't require only them to execute. And so in doing that, I ended up crashing and burning at the end of 2021 because I was building my agency in a way that wasn't scalable, wasn't sustainable. It was not my definition of success. And it took me going through that crash and burn to realize that this is not what I was supposed to be doing. And so having that revelation of wanting to help women entrepreneurs and having that experience around the same time, I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to start RAYNE IX so that I can really align my business and my goals with my personal purpose, what makes me significant, what I really want as a human being. Because we spend so much of our lives working, especially as entrepreneurs, that if we're not doing the work that we really, really love to do, I mean, it's really hard to truly find great fulfillment in your life if you spend so much time doing this thing that, you don't really feel passionate about. So that's kind of how I wound up going from the corporate world, if you will, into the world of entrepreneurship. And then how I figured out I wanted to serve women business owners and entrepreneurs in doing the work that I do now.
I love that, because I think sometimes what we view as maybe a mess in our life or a mistake in our life ends up being the foundation for something so magical, so integrated, so much more in alignment with who and what we want to do in this life.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate 2021 when you realized the infrastructure and the way you had been operating yourself and your business wasn't working any longer, and you had to deconstruct to reconstruct a path forward? How did you go through that?
Tumultuously. I will say hindsight is 2020. I made a lot of mistakes in 2021 that I now realize were learning lessons, right? But, I think for anybody who's listening and going through a tough time, like, give yourself some grace, because my guess is you probably haven't been through this situation before, because if you had, you probably wouldn't be in this situation again, right? And so 2021 was full of a lot of new things for me. At the end of 2020, I had come up with the idea of RAYNE IX, and I was like, okay, someday I'm going to build my agency to the point where I can sell it, and then I'm going to do this thing. And then out of nowhere, at the beginning of 2021, I had been given an opportunity for what was potentially a very lucrative passive revenue opportunity. And I was like, well, I have to take this. This is a huge opportunity, but I can't do it under my studio or my agency name, because it was the brand. We had a great branding, but Brainchild Studios, it was like all these nerdy kids and like photo shoots and like pink and blue. It was like beautiful branding, but it was not appropriate for this new opportunity. And I said, well, crap. I guess now I need to launch RAYNE IX now so that I can take advantage of this thing. And in doing that, it very much derailed my focus on building my agency. I definitely was victim to shiny object syndrome. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. We're doing fine. I'm going to hire more people so that things don't fall through the cracks. And we did. We hired more people. And I did my best in trying to onboard and train them and give them the support that I thought they needed. But I'm sure one could argue that I failed in many ways in doing that. And then I was given the opportunity to take on a fractional CMO role that continued. And I was like, this is so exciting. I would love to do that. That'd be so great. And I was like, that's okay. Things are happening over here. It's fine. And so I did that. And it was like, I think it was like 10 hours a month. It wasn't anything insane. But then I started to get very protective of my calendar, and I hid my calendar from my team. And that was not a good move. Hindsight, right? And then people were like, well, what's Kiley doing with her time? Why isn't she available? Blah, blah, blah. And then I started to get mad. I was like, why are you questioning me? Come on, give me a break. And so then everybody started to get like pissed at each other. And we had this really in-depth emotional Zoom call at one point, because my team's virtual. And everyone was just crying. And it's like, I'm really sorry. This is what's going on with me. This is why I'm doing the things. And I thought I was protecting you, but it shows that I'm not protecting you. And I made it a lot worse. And I'm really, really sorry about this. And then so-and-so was crying and so-and-so was crying. And they're like, well, I felt this and I felt this. And okay, I'm so glad, And so I was like, okay, learning lesson there. It was like, be transparent. Just be transparent. And so as that continued to be, something I tried it really hard to continue to do, it just became clear to me that trying to navigate both of these things was really difficult. And I could have definitely gone back into my agency, or I could have done RAYNE IX entirely. And arguably, I probably could have done both. But the reality was, I didn't want to do the agency anymore. And I really struggled with that because I was so proud of everything that we built. I mean, we had so many awards, we had international clients, we had team members from amazing team members. We had so much support from we had all these amazing things going on. And I just felt like I was letting everybody down. But I realized that it just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't sustainable in the way that I built it. And I didn't want to be doing that work anymore. And I didn't really want to be we had 6 employees and a couple dozen contractors. And that was too much for me. I'm like, this is a full-time job just managing people. And I didn't sign up for that. I don't want to do that. And again, I had been building that entire year to build my agency to be wildly successful, because I was under the assumption that that meant, 7 figures in revenue, a bigger team, all the shiny things, right? And it turns out that's not what I really wanted. So I hit this breaking point at the end of 2021. I remember having this conversation with a mentor. I hopped on this call and he's like, Kiley, what's going on? And I just started crying. And I'm like, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. And he's like, all right, talk to me. What's going on? And I told him everything. I'm like, I've been having heart palpitations for the last 9 months. My body's revolting against me. This is not good. And he's like, okay, what do you want? And I was like, I want to go all in on RAYNE IX. I want to help women entrepreneurs kill it and make all the money and live the lives they want. He's like, then do that. Go all in. You'll be fine. And it was like this moment of just permission I needed. And so I sat on that over the weekend. I'm like, what does this really mean? And then that following week, I had a call with my, at the time, COO. And I was like, look, real talk. This is what's up. She's like, I'm not surprised. I think this has run its course. I think that's okay. Now let's put into place a 12-month exit strategy and, do it the way that you feel good about. And so that's what we did. So it was, I mean, I'm skipping over a lot of gory details, but that was, kind of the journey of 2021. And then we took holiday break. My body started to truly, really revolt against me for a number of months at that point. And at the beginning of the new year in 2022, I had a conversation with my employees and I was like, look, this is what's up. This is what I would like to do. I'd like to bring you guys with me to RAYNE IX because I think that you're the best thing that I built with Brainchild. But this is what we need to do. We need to focus on delivering for our clients. We have to sign some more revenue so that everybody's taken care of this year. And then we can start to focus. But you can't tell anybody until we get those things in place, because we can't risk potentially not making it happen. And so they were amazing. And they're like, okay, great. And in the first 60 days of 2022, having that focus, we signed more net new revenue than all of 2021 combined. And by the end of March of 2022, we had signed all of the revenue we needed for that entire year. So we could all shift our focus to starting to build RAYNE IX. And that's kind of how we deconstructed to then reconstruct. And I'll also say too that we then entered into 2023 like guns blazing. And that was a misstep on my part, because I was like, oh, I built an agency to year 6. I'm just going to pop over and keep running at that same pace. No, you start back at year 1, whether you're ready for it or not. And I started the year a bit top heavy. So we had to realign things and we had to reconstruct again. But we still have the same people in place. They're just in different roles in a different capacity. And I feel super lucky for that to be the case, because finding really talented people is super hard. And I'm so, so grateful for everybody who's working with us right now.
What a emotional journey.
Oh yeah.
It's challenging when you hit a ceiling, or you hit an enough is enough moment, or this wall in business or in life. It doesn't even have to just be business, because I think when you build and scale an organization, when you hit a ceiling, you're actually hitting a ceiling of the leader. The leader has hit an internal ceiling, and usually it has something to do with self-concept, identity, childhood stuff, trauma that has to be healed and integrated. And it's a struggle because you have to let a psychological construct that you have fall and then reintegrate a new one and then build and scale from there. And it's, from a founder perspective, it's challenging because you're on display. People are looking to you to have all of the answers, have it all together, point the ship in the right direction. And to your point, it's like, I've never been here before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like you could read all of the books you want, but no book is like,
Yes.
at some point you're going to crash and burn, and this is how you get yourself out of it. Like,
Yes.
no, that playbook doesn't exist.
Yes. Well, yes, in some ways. And 8 years ago, I hit one of these moments, and I actually wrote myself a personal playbook for how to get out of it.
Yes.
And I've used my personal playbook in my own life many times since then. For these are the 10 steps that help you heal, help you overcome the ceiling that you're hitting, and help you integrate and continue to transcend and execute. Because sometimes what happens when people hit these ceilings, like you're hitting or you hit, and we'll hit again because I'm going to hit them again. If you're pushing for growth, you're going to hit it again. We stop, we freeze, we feel like we can't, we're inadequate, we're not enough. So we don't give ourselves the permission to reinvent ourselves. And I think as a world, as a human species together, we're a lot of us have hit this, and some of us are hitting it right now. And again, we're going to hit it again. And I think having these conversations is so helpful because, and I'm appreciating you for this, because it helps to show people that you can hit it. You can own the messy. You can own the mistakes. You can say, oops, I'm so cringed by some of the things I did. And you can dust yourself off, get back up, and keep going.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah. And then also the wisdom that you gained in that time was what you are now able to serve people with. So what were some of the things that you learned about yourself in that transformative journey that you are now applying with your female entrepreneur clients?
Yeah. I want to just touch on something that you just said, because you brought up so many good points. But I think one of the things I have learned about myself in this journey is that entrepreneurs, if they're one thing, it should be resilient. Like, I don't think you can really make it as an entrepreneur if you don't have the ability to fall down and get back up, and fall down and get back up, and fall down and get back up, and fall down. Like, it just keeps happening. You know, every now and then it just feels like you're just getting pummeled. And you're like with your hands tied behind your back, and you're like, okay, I get it. Do I get a break at any point? Right. And it's like, you just keep taking it, and you fall down and you get back up. And I think that that's, you know, one thing that I have bad days all the time. Right. But one of the things I remind myself of is, like, I'm so resilient. I am so strong. I'm so resilient. Like, there are very few things that can break me. I'm not going to say that there's nothing, because I'm sure there's something.
Universe, don't try me. I'm
good. I'm really good. But you know, it's you have to be resilient. And so that's, to answer your question, that's one thing that I try to be really candid with the women that I speak with. You know, I don't think everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, and that's a-okay. Right? That is totally fine. I don't think everybody is cut out for the risk it takes to be an entrepreneur. Again, that's a-okay. And if we were all entrepreneurs, none of us would have teams, right? Like, that would be really difficult. So again, like, it's okay. Just be honest with yourself. I think that's another thing that I realized for myself, and something that I try really hard to bring into the work that I do. I'm not here to tell you that you have to build a company to look a certain way. I frankly don't care. It does not matter to me. All I want is, I want you to just be honest with yourself about what you want. And that's sometimes harder to do than one might think. You know, it's easier said than done. But so often, especially with the women I work with, many of them haven't taken the time to name what they want. They don't really know. They're like, I'm a mom and a wife and a sister and all these things, and I'm taking care of everybody else. And all of a sudden it's years later and I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know where I want to go. And it's like, okay, well, let's start now. Right? Let's get honest with ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, what makes us happy, what doesn't make us happy, what we want for our future. Let's take that time and name it now. Because I mean, that's what happened to me. I was running an agency. I started an agency because I knew how to do digital marketing. Like many people, we're accidental business owners. We started a business doing the thing we know how to do, hoping someone will pay us, that will make enough to pay our bills and keep going. That's how most businesses get started. Nobody signs up. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but many people don't sign up to be a business owner. And they're like, you know what? I think I want to lead a team of 500 people and I want to blah, 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 blah. Like, yes, there are some people like that, but many small business owners don't do that. They find themselves in positions of leadership that they are ill-equipped to be in. Same thing happens in corporate. People get promoted to positions of leadership that they are not well trained to be successful in. Same things happens in entrepreneurship, right? And then you get things thrown at you like curveballs, like a pandemic that flips the entire world upside down. And you're like, oh, no playbook for that one. How do we deal with this? How do we make sure our team feels psychologically safe and taken care of? How do we be people first, but also make sure that we don't totally lose our profit margins and become cash poor? Like, you know, it's the Wild West in entrepreneurship. Like, yes, I've read many a books. There are many a playbooks and there will continue to be. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to consume all these things, keep them as tools in your tool belt, and hope that when something comes at you, you've got the right tool. And if not, then you're like, okay, well, I have a hanger and I have masking tape and I have a pencil and like, I think I can make this one work, you know? And it's like, okay, try your best. So to go back to answering your question, I think I learned I'm really resilient and I try to set realistic expectations with my clients that this isn't easy, but you can do it. And I take that as a great point of confidence when most of the people I talk to after speaking with me, they say, wow, I think this is possible. Like, yeah, it's totally possible. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's totally possible. Running your business by the numbers. I have this fancy schmancy spreadsheet that I live and die by and I use with our clients. And I love it so much because it shows me what's possible. So whenever you're hitting like a rough patch, like run your numbers. Okay, this is how much runway we have until we can't make payroll. This is how much runway we have. And maybe I could give myself like a profit share at the end of the month or quarter or year. Or this is what our cash flow looks like. And maybe I should be running my car through the business so that I'm reducing taxable income and I'm still paying for my life. Like running the business by the numbers and understanding what your physical bandwidth is in supporting the deliverables that you put out into the world is also important because you can't scale if it's just you, right? Like you can't. I mean, you could have some passive revenue opportunities and if that takes off, awesome. But for many of the service-based providers that I work with, if you want to be a solopreneur, that's okay. Just know that that's not a super scalable path in most cases. So just trying to help them, first and foremost, just be honest with themselves and like put the blinders on. It does not matter what your parents say. It doesn't matter what your friends and family say. It doesn't matter what Instagram says. It doesn't matter what any business guru says. Honey, what do you want? Like, what do you want? Great.
And you're the only one that can answer that for you.
I know. That's the thing. You can't delegate that part. You can delegate a lot of other things, but you can't delegate that one. And so just getting honest with yourself, being honest with yourself, and then really finding the right support team. I have hired a lot of people and they were mistakes. And I have hired a handful and they have saved my life. And so one of the things I try really hard to do with the people I work with is say, here are the people I would recommend. I've worked with them. Either they've hired me or I've hired them. And I can speak to them as human beings. Like they'll take good care of you. So that being resilient, understanding the numbers, and playing the long game. I think that's really easy to forget sometimes as an entrepreneur. It's like, I got to make this money by this month. I have to make this much money this month, and it's like, that's a real thing. Don't get me wrong. It is. But play the long game. Can we make a little bit of a sacrifice here so that next year it's like, wow, look at us go. Or like, what does year 3 look like, or year 5, or whatever? Like, play the long game. That's been a huge mindset shift for me too.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on something you mentioned about just the capacity and like the psychological burden. In my experience with different business owners and even with myself, one of the things that is the biggest struggle is the tabs in our brain that are open. And
Yeah, for
it
sure.
weighs on us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes getting to the level of clarity around what do you even want, or what is the best decision strategically? What is our next 5 moves? What are we actually shooting for? Right people, right seats. All of those things are challenging to be an effective leader at when the tabs in the leader's brain are just overloading and
Mm-hmm.
you can't process it all. And so in parallel too with your comment about having resilience. And in my life, one of the ways that I value resilience is not just psychological resilience or endurance resilience, but nervous system resilience. Like, can I experience something traumatic or blindsiding or unexpected or the rug pulled out from under me? And yeah, that's a tumble. And I like to say, if you're going to run hard, you're going to fall hard. So as entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
we run hard. And when you fall hard, don't be surprised. Like, it's not a mistake. It's not something to be ashamed about. You should expect to fall. You should expect to have scrapes and bruises and
Mm-hmm.
tears and sweat. That should be expected. And then develop for yourself a playbook of resilience. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you, within yourself or with your clients, manage the psychological burden of it? Like, how do you create productive structures around that to hedge against the weight of that over a long enough time horizon that leads to burnout?
Isn't that the $1 million question? That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share what has worked for me, but I'll also, like, in full transparency, say it's still something I'm working on.
I think we
It's,
all are working on it. I think human
yeah,
beings, and I'll just preface this for every episode I ever do, every human being is in process. Every human being is in process. So even the gurus who you think have
yeah,
arrived, they are still in process. So whether you have 0 followers or 10 million followers, you have 0 revenue or 10 million in revenue, every single person's in process. So there's no shame in the practice of becoming.
yeah. No, I so agree with that. And I think that that's also a message that we need to be louder about,
Mhm.
because, I mean, there's so much conversation around mental wellness, which is a real thing, very, very real thing. And one of the things I've come to realize over the time, or over my, entrepreneurial journey, is you have to prioritize your mental well-being in order to be successful. Like, I think it is so difficult, if not impossible, to run a successful business if you are personally mentally crashing. Like, it is so hard. And so, to your comment about regulating the nervous system, I have been so curious about all of the nervous system things over the last number of
Mm.
years, because, like, let's be honest, the last few years have been hard. Like, 2020 rocked everybody. 2021 was a hard year for me. 2022 was, for me, a year of a lot of change. 2023 was the first year we went all in on RAYNE IX. That was a huge year of change, and it was a hard year for a lot of small business owners. And now here we are, like, stabilizing, and we're in the year of another presidential election, which is unstabilizing for many business owners because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So it's always ups and downs. And so I have a couple mantras that I've found to be really helpful. I'll also say I found this workout program that's run by this comedian who's a bit vulgar in her language maybe sometimes. But she also does a really great job of helping. It's a women only program, helping women speak positively to themselves,
Mm.
and talks a lot about, just because you're going through like a physical thing in that workout that sucks and you don't like doing it, but you just got to do it, that you're training yourself for when in the real world things suck and you don't want to do them, but you just have to do them. So I think to your point about, how do we balance the psychological aspect of all the things, I think it's more than just the psychological aspect. I think it also manifests itself in the way we move our bodies, in the people we surround ourselves with, in the food we put into our bodies, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we protect our time. So some of the things that I've done, I typically don't take meetings on Fridays or Mondays because I like to give myself 4 days of fluidity. That doesn't mean I'm not working. I sometimes work for like 6 hours on a Saturday, but I take Fridays off, right? So it just gives me that fluidity, because what I realized for myself is I need time and space to think, learn, build, and create. And I mean, my Tuesdays, I'm usually like in back-to-back meetings from 8 until 6, right? So I'm not getting any thinking done. I'm just doing. So I have to protect that time. And that was really hard for me at first, to say no to people, because I felt like, oh, I'm supposed to be working at least a 40-hour work week to be taken seriously as an entrepreneur. And I was like, no, bro, protect your time. And so now I just, sometimes it takes longer to get on my calendar, and that's okay. And people respect that, and that's okay. Right? So that's one thing I've done. I'm trying to exercise more regularly. I could be better at it, but I'm trying to move my body. I'm trying to be better about the things I eat and how I'm spending my time. I put a blocker on Instagram so that every time I go onto it, it pretty much asks me like, are you sure? Are you sure you really want to go on here? And I will say, like, there are many times I'm like, no, I really shouldn't. I should not go. This is not good for me right now. But a couple mantras that I had mentioned. So this is happening for me, not to me. I mean, I think it's really easy to get into the victim mindset. And it's like, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. But again, you got to remember, you let yourself go down that negative mindset rabbit hole, and it is a vicious one, man. So this is happening for me, not to me. Like, what is the gift? Something is the gift. What is the gift? How do I keep moving forward? That one, and trust the process. Those have both been really helpful. So trust the process. I'm not a terribly patient person. That is not one of my greatest virtues. And so that, again, going along with what I said earlier about playing the long game, just trust the process. Like, if you've gotten yourself into a pickle, you can get out of it. It might not happen tomorrow, but trust the process. Be gentle with yourself. Like, a year from now, things might look totally different, right? But it's baby steps. So those have been a couple of things that have been helpful for me.
I love it. I'll echo the Mondays and Fridays, no meetings. I have fluidity. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, back to back. And I call those my alpha days. So my alpha days are when I'm just like GSD mode. I crank up the music, I dance, I'm like going. And then my fluidity days, I listen to African tribal music, I write,
I
create, I'm in just a different space.
Yeah.
And that has been really good for me in my female nervous system, what feels good in my body. And then I have a saying, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. Yeah. So being very protective of your time.
Yeah.
And what you eat, when you sleep, what you think about, all of that plays such a huge impact into our bodies. And there's a really great book about recovering from trauma called The Body Keeps Score. And it talks about cellular memory and the importance of reprogramming it so that you can then have trust in your own intuitive knowing. And one of the reasons I feel like people pleasers, which you alluded to, like the ability to say no, which I also struggle with, is we don't sometimes, if you've experienced any trauma, you sometimes don't trust your own nervous system. So there's this journey back to self-trust that takes place. And then when you get there and you are back into the seat of your soul where you deeply feel trusted, and it's the sacred seat, not the scared seat, you can integrate and create from there, from a place of wholeness and completeness versus lack, which then you're creating art. You're not, you're creating, you're not competing. You're you're not trying to perform, you're in process. Like then you start getting into this fluidity place where even in your work, you're in fluidity, even if you're in a GSD mode. And so that just is a testament to mirror and echo the things that you're doing, I'm also doing, which have been very powerful in creating a nervous system that is resilient. But also, when you have a nervous system of a leader that has resilience, this infrastructure that you create in your company, the teams you create in your companies, the things that you do in your companies end up changing and evolving. And my experience, when I am the most integrated as a leader, that's when I experience the highest revenue. And when I'm less integrated, I end up making decisions that are destructive to the company. And I've witnessed this many times, and I'm sure you've witnessed it with your clients as well. How does like accountability play into your world?
Ooh, good one. I want to just make one quick note though. Sleep, yes, you mentioned sleep, so important. I'm really, really specific about sleep. The other thing that's really helped me in setting boundaries is scheduling messages. So I try really hard not to send emails at night, and I just schedule them for the next morning, and same with Slack messages. I didn't know that that feature existed for a very long time. And so I was sending my team messages all the time, and I was like, just ignore them until the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really not helpful to them. Like, so now we've set some really good boundaries of like, we stay within work hours. So anyway, I just want to toss that out there. Accountability. Question was, how does accountability play a role, or what was the question specifically?
It could be, I find for me in my business and personal life, and just in general, when I implement, like if I have a dream that I want to do something, and I think humans in general struggle, we'll have a dream and then we'll delay the time until we actually execute on it. And sometimes that's years, and then you wake up and you never actually did your dream. So I talk a lot about you have to integrate your dreamer and your doer, the visionary and the integrator, the part of you that is expansive with the part of you that's rooted. Like there's all this integration that needs to take place.
Yeah.
And we don't see our blind spots. Like a human alone cannot see their blind spots. So for me, accountability and permission for other people to speak into my life that I trust, that I know holds my highest and best good on the forefront. Like they don't have an agenda. They are Team Staci 100%. Allows me to have vulnerability in safe places that creates the level of accountability I need to play at the level I want to play at without taking my power away. So I'm curious for you how accountability plays into your up-leveling journey and how you choose your accountability structures.
Yeah. Yes, and 1,000%. I really believe in the power of coaches. I worked with an amazing coach for 3.5 years that led me through some of my most tumultuous times. I'm now working with another coach who's been awesome. And just, again, it's about that creating that psychologically safe space so you can be open and vulnerable and explore new ideas. I'll also say my team has been wonderful. I've had the pleasure of working with the majority of the people on my team now for 5 years. So we know each other really well. And I tend to have a lot of ideas, and they're not all good ideas. Many of them are not good ideas. And so to your comment about like having the dream and then doing the dream, one of the things I've been trying to get better at is having the idea and then vetting the idea before we actually do anything about it, because I've wasted a lot of time, energy, and money just going, right? Like run. So again, I think that also plays into that idea that I mentioned earlier about playing the long game of like, okay, let's create this long-term strategy and let's have the ideas, but like, let's put a pin in them. And like, like when you go onto Amazon and you put something in your cart and you're like, let me just think about this for like sleep on this one and see if tomorrow I still want to buy it. Kind of like that, except longer, like, okay, here's all my ideas. Okay. Like one of my team members is like, okay, Kiley, let's come back to that in like a week. Okay. Let's just see where we're at a week from now. It's like, okay, that's a good idea. And I will say the other thing that's really helped me with that too, from a mindset shift, the book 10 Times is Easier Than 2 Times by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. The whole premise of the book is, you know, as business owners, we're looking to grow our business and we're like, wow, wouldn't it be crazy if I doubled my business? But wouldn't it be really crazy if I increase it 10 times over? And their argument is that it's easier to increase 10 times than 2 times because 10 times you're streamlined and you're focused on what is the one thing or like the couple things that are really going to propel you forward. Whereas looking to double, you're like, well, I could do a little more here and I could do a little more here, you know? And so that has been really helpful for me as well. And trying to just streamline and centralize my focus. And I talk to my clients about that as well. And then, you know, I think it can show up in different ways for different people. I've been a part of a number of mastermind groups. And again, we talk about entrepreneurship is such a unique thing. I really recommend finding your crew, whatever that looks like, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a formal mastermind or an informal mastermind, or, you know, like a monthly, we're just going to get together and talk and like bitch about how this is hard. You know, like sometimes that's just what you need. But finding that those people in your life that you can text and they'll text you right back, can connect you to the right people. I found that to be really helpful. And I also try to make sure I'm paying it forward and making those connections and helping other people be accountable in their ways as well. So, and, you know, I'll also give a huge shout out to my husband. If it wasn't for him, I'm pretty sure I would work 24 hours a day. And he has been a really great reminder of like, hey, bro, just chill out. Okay. Like, let's be a whole human and do other things. It's like, oh yeah, that's nice. I really would like that. That'd be great. So, he's the one that keeps me like well fed. So I'm not living off of frozen pizzas and nacho cheese Doritos, and keeps me working somewhat moderately hours. So a big thank you to him as well.
I love your journey, and also I just love your humor in your journey. The things that
you gotta, man. Otherwise, you're just gonna cry all the time.
Yes, it's true. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, how would you define success?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. So for me, success is doing work I love that is financially supporting my goals. To have a healthy, happy marriage. My husband and I would love to have children, so to have a family. The reason I went into entrepreneurship really was because I knew I wanted to be a mom someday, but I love working and I wanted to have that flexibility and I wanted to create that for myself. And my hope is to create that opportunity for other women too. So we're working on that. And I'd love to someday get to the point where my husband has the opportunity to do whatever he wants. That, you know, he's been a great support system in helping me and supporting as I build my entrepreneurial journey. I hope I get to the point that someday he can do whatever. He jokes that someday he just wants to be a park ranger or a mailman and like walk around and not talk to anybody. And I'm like, great, babe. You know, maybe someday we'll get there. Not right now though, but someday. And, you know, one of the things we're working on really hard in RAYNE IX is to build our Accelerator program, and we have ancillary offerings that support that. And my hope is that that program can cover all of our operating expenses. So if someday that is all we offer, then we'll be fine, and I'll be fine. And that would be great.
So this program, I don't know if it's the thing, but I'm curious what projects you have in your pipeline that you're super excited about right now.
Yeah. So our Accelerator program is one of our signature programs. The framework that we operate on, we call it the DNA of success, the definition and alignment of success, where we get really clear on who you are as a human being, and then we help you build your business accordingly. And so we have 2 core offerings on that right now. So if you wanted to work with me one-on-one, I take on a handful of clients doing that work in what ends up being the equivalent of a 3-day intensive workshop. And then I coach with them for a year. And then they also join our Accelerator program. So they get that peer-to-peer support. And they also get access to our 15 guest speakers and their wisdom and their expertise. So that's one of them. The Accelerator stands on its own. We're actually launching this in a couple of different formats. So we've been doing a couple cohorts in this year, and in 2025, as we move forward, we're reformatting this to be a 12-week Accelerator cohort that we're planning on launching 3 times a year. But for those who are like, you know what, I just want the information, I want to just go, we are actually launching a self-guided or an on-demand version of the Accelerator later this year, so that people don't have to wait to join us for a cohort if that's not their style. So we've got that going on. We're also relaunching the CEO Hotline, so that we'll be setting up a Slack channel. So if people just want my brain and want to ask me quick questions, they can do that. And next year, we're hoping, fingers crossed, maybe, to, I don't want to give away too much, but to launch additional educational programming. I'll just leave it at that right now. And I'm working on my book. So that's very exciting. And hopefully that'll get out at the end of next year or early 2026. We'll see.
It's amazing. So many wonderful things. And I think it's really great that your husband feeds you, because you're going to need energy to do it all.
I'm very grateful that he feeds me too.
Where can people find you or connect with you if they're interested?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Kiley Peters, Kiley Peters. You can check out our website, RAYNE9.com. That's RAYNEIX.com. It's a Roman numeral 9. You can check out KileyPeters.com as well. But yeah, those are the big places.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you on, and I really just want to honor you for your entrepreneurial journey and your resilience. Because taking a nosedive, recovering, building, all of that, it takes so much grit. And I just appreciate all of your humor in the journey that you're on. Again, so you're not crying all the time. And
it's true.
I am excited to be rooting for you and seeing how these programs come together and how you help female entrepreneurs really define what they want and then build businesses from there. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you so much for having me, Staci.
And to all who are watching, I hope this episode encourages your soul, your heart, your spirit to find your purpose, get in that seat, and then create your business from there. And remember, you can build a business and a beautiful life at the same time when you stay rooted and get shit done. Cheers, y'all.